first in war, first in peace, and first in the hearts of his countrymen. These words, written after George Washington's death in 1799, still capture what he means to the American story. He was the soldier who held a desperate army together. He was the statesman who helped guide a fragile republic into being. And he was the president who showed the world that true greatness is not found in seizing power, but in knowing when to lay it down. Washington's courage, integrity, and self-command inspired the Continental Army through British bullets, winter hunger, exhaustion, and doubt. Against overwhelming odds, he led a newborn nation to victory. After winning independence and war, he helped safeguard it into peace. He presided over the Constitutional Convention, where the framework of the United States was forged, and then became the nation's first president. Yet through all the honors, burdens, and triumphs of public life, there was one place Washington longed for above all others: Mount Vernon. He once wrote, "I had rather be on my farm than be an emperor of the world." For Washington, Mount Vernon was more than a residence. It was his refuge, his ambition, his responsibility, and a place where the public man returned to become himself again. Set along the Potomac River in Fairfax County, Virginia, Mount Vernon began not as a grand mansion, but as a modest family home. The original house was built in 1734 by Washington's father, Augustine Washington. George Washington began managing the estate in 1754, and over the next 45 years, he slowly transformed it into one of the most recognizable homes in America. When Washington first took charge, Mount Vernon was roughly 2,100-acre estate, with a house of about 3,500 square feet. By the end of his life, the estate had grown to about 7,600 acres, and the mansion had expanded to nearly 11,000 square feet. The house itself grew with Washington. He added a full second story, expanded the wings, and shaped the mansion into a grand Virginia estate. Though made of wood, the exterior was crafted to resemble cut stone through a technique known as rustication. It gave the home the dignity and presence of a stone mansion, while reflecting Washington's practical eye for economy and design. Mount Vernon was beautiful, but it was never merely decorative. It was a working estate, a place of management, hospitality, labor, and vision. Even while leading troops during the Revolutionary War, Washington wrote home with instruction about crops, trees, repairs, and the care of the estate. His mind was often on Mount Vernon, even when history had called him far away. And he was away often. During the 8 years of the Revolutionary War, Washington saw Mount Vernon only once. During his presidency, he also had few chances to return. Still, the home remained close to his heart. It was a place he hoped for, planned for, and dreamed of returning to. Mount Vernon reflects Washington's life because it carries both sides of his character: the man of public duty and the man of private discipline. The new room, occupying the mansion's north wing, reveals Washington as host, leader, and gentleman of the new republic. This was one of the largest rooms in the house, larger than many neighboring homes of the time. It served as a dining room, gathering place, and picture gallery, with paintings and engravings that spoke to Washington's taste, learning, and the place in the world. Here, guests were welcomed into the home of the man who had led the revolution and then led the nation. After the war, visitors came constantly to Mount Vernon. Some were friends, some were admirers, some simply wanted to stand in the presence of the man who had become a living symbol of American independence. Washington and Martha received them with dignity and grace, though the burden of hospitality was often heavy. Yet beyond the public rooms, Mount Vernon also reveals a more private Washington. The bedchamber of George and Martha is where they would both start and end their day in prayer, with a chair dedicated to kneeling before God as they were both steadfast in their devotion. Not only did this godly couple take to heart Jesus' command to pray in private, but they even had a dedicated room with a spot for it. This steadfast dedication was carried over into the study where Washington would have likely read from some of his favorite influences, including Jonathan Wesley, the King James Bible, and the Book of Common Prayer. His study was the command center for the estate. From this room, he answered letters, managed accounts, read, planned improvements, and oversaw the daily life of Mount Vernon. It was one of the few spaces where he could withdraw from the demands of visitors and public expectation. This room was his sanctuary. Here, surrounded by books, papers, maps, and instruments of work, Washington could return to the habits that shaped him: order, discipline, reflection, and responsibility. The same qualities that help him lead an army and govern a nation were practiced here in quieter form. Outside, the piazza opened toward the Potomac River, which Washington admired deeply. From there, guests could feel the breeze of the water and look across a view that seemed to stretch beyond the burdens of politics and war. For Washington, the landscape was not an escape from responsibility, but a reminder of what that responsibility was meant to protect: home, peace, inheritance, and the promise of a free people. But Mount Vernon also carries a harder part of the American story. For all its beauty, the estate was also a plantation where hundreds of enslaved men, women, and children lived and labored in bondage. At the time of Washington's death, more than 300 enslaved people lived at Mount Vernon, though Washington personally owned 123 of them. Others were connected to the estate through Martha Washington's first husband, estate, or through other arrangements. As a young Virginia planter, Washington accepted slavery as part of the world he inherited. But over time, especially after a war fought in the name of liberty, he began to wrestle with this contradiction. He did not end the institution in his lifetime, and the lives of those enslaved at Mount Vernon remain an essential part of the estate's history. Yet in his will, Washington ordered that the enslaved people he personally owned be freed after Martha Washington's death. This decision did not undo the injustice of slavery, but it remains one of the clearest signs that Washington understood, however imperfectly, the moral tension between the ideals of revolution and the reality of bondage at his own home. Mount Vernon, then, is not only a monument to Washington's greatness, it is a place where the full weight of history can be felt: triumph and contradiction, liberty and labor, public virtue and private struggle. Washington did not want to be separated from Mount Vernon even in death. Though Congress wished for his remains to rest in the Capitol, his will directed that his final resting place be at the home he loved. That choice tells us something essential about him. George Washington reached the heights of fame and power, but he never saw power as his final home. Again and again, he returned his thoughts to Mount Vernon, to its fields, its rooms, its river view, and the ordered life he hoped to enjoy there. When King George III heard that Washington planned to resign his command after the Revolutionary War and return home, he is said to have remarked that if Washington did so, he would be the greatest man in the world. And that is what Washington did. He was a man who could have been king. Instead, he gave up power and returned to Mount Vernon. In doing so, he gained a title greater than any monarch could bestow: Father of his country. George Washington's favorite verse laid the foundation for his life in public and his estate. Everyone will sit under their own vine and under their own fig tree, and no one will make them afraid, for the Lord Almighty has spoken. Micah 4:4. Mount Vernon remains because Washington built his house and his country on a cornerstone of faith. It is the home of a soldier, a farmer, a president, and a man of God who understood that the strength of a republic depends not only on those willing to lead, but on those willing to fear the Lord.